Hi, welcome to another BlenderSushi live noding using animation nodes. In previous live noding, I was covering the way we can trace an object, like an animated object, and then we kind of created like a duplicate copy for every frames. Today we're gonna do another similar example where we are tracing an object, but instead of creating duplicates for every frame, we're gonna be just tracing the center point of the objects, and as well we're gonna see how we can trace the vertices of the objects using particle. So two different techniques, but you might find it useful depending on what you're doing. Basically, later on with a particle tracing, we don't need to bake or keyframe the animations. So if you want to have like a live procedural effect, and you don't want to, if your animation is not a keyframe animations, you can use the particle tracing method. I'll show you um, to be really clear what I'm talking about. So back to this, where we start with, we have an icosphere, and it's being animated using the vector wiggle, right? And we don't have any keyframe animation yet. Let's see if this works without keyframing. It will not actually work. So if you use the object transform input, and this is the node that will do the job for us with tracing and stuff. I'm gonna grab that object, and we know that this node has a secret menu here, advanced node settings. If we turn off this use current transform, we can actually now look back in the frame. So offset frame, let's have a look. We actually need we're gonna still need a loop for that. Loop input, because we need to iterate the frame somehow. Index iterations, index gonna go there. So it's kind of like a backward way to do this. And let's say we have like five values stepping back. Can't see anything yet. Let's debug it. I found this like a really powerful concept of being able to see the value before or after the time. Okay, it says we only have debug drawer. Probably I should try debug loop. Plug that in and then have a look. Put it here. See, icosphere. You only have a single value. Now that's because with a object transform input and the offset and or absolute thing, we actually need to bake the animation. So it needs to be a keyframe animations. Otherwise, Blender or animation nodes wouldn't know what's the previous and after animations. So let's try baking it out. Keyframe, set keyframes. Okay, with this object, so we just gonna bake the location. enable, test it. You're just gonna wait until it's fully baking the whole animation. It's by default. Blender creates 250 frames kind of animation from start to the end. Okay, it's finished. Now let's have a look. Okay, the debug loops still only showing one. Maybe I did something wrong, but now you see. Okay. So we actually have 5. Now say 5 iterations. So here we can see it's actually working. If I cut this, it has to be in a loop. Okay. Anyhow, it's outputting vector location, so it's a good sign. We will then generate the output. It's going to be vector list. Let's plug that in, and from here we can use the spline output. Spline from points. Sometimes I'm memorizing the setup, but very often I'm just remembering the logic and kind of guessing the nodes on the fly. So I was going to create a spline object output a spline objects, and then create a new target object. Let's see, hopefully this works. Yeah, I'm increasing the iterations. Let's have a look. Turn off the grid so we can see things better. I'm gonna save this real quick. Save this. Okay, now I can see the trace is actually, it's not tracing, but the objects is kind of following that. That's because of the frame number. It needs to be a negative. You can use math invert or just -1 or something. Okay, now it's actually working, and we don't need to see the data. So it's sampling depending on the index, the number of the index. It's gonna be sampling these objects. What's funny though, if we, okay, instead of icosphere, if we are using cube, okay, cube, okay, we need to bake it again. and make sure we source the animated keyframe animated objects. So we have our trace happening. We could probably use like 0.2 or something. Oh no, it's not gonna work. -1. Let's try 5. 5 small. 20 iteration. The index actually will just give you like a full number. So I'll show you what I mean. Debug loop. Debug loop. You see it's like a full number, so it's just gonna sample per frame. But if you want to have like a subframe, you can use like a float range, and I believe this will. Let's say so instead of that guy, we're gonna plug in this guy, while the index will still take the number from this list step. So the step can be in the subframe. That's it. Every point 1 start from frame 0. Let's see if we actually have 20. Doesn't look like it's producing anything. So because it's just like kind of like fractional value, super tiny, and we're gonna multiply it with -1 as well. By doing it like this, we're gonna have like a smoother trace path instead of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have like fractional value here, so it's gonna calculate the subframes. So that's pretty cool. You can multiply this by. Okay, there's a funky thing happening there. Maybe I shouldn't start from 0, 1. Start from -10, -1. Yeah, that amount should be the same, like 100. So it should be 100 as well. Cool, so this is exactly what I want to show you. So it's tracing the fractional value. And this is kind of tracking the center of the object. Also, this works only for the keyframe animated object. Without the keyframe, this will not work. So we're gonna look at another technique where we can trace the object center or the object's the vertices of the objects without the need of keyframing the objects, and we're gonna use particles for that. So let's delete everything, including the keyframe. Let's delete this keyframe, delete the curve. So delete the keyframe, clear keyframes. Now we're back to where we started with. Probably I will kind of rotate, wiggle it, wiggle Euler, wiggle Euler wheel. Frame goes into the occlusion, plugged into the rotation of this master cube. Maybe I can speed up the rotation in this case, so it's kind of wiggling. We will trace the vertices as well. Let's try to do that. But first of all, we're gonna just trace the center point of these objects, just like before, but except that we don't need to bake. We don't need to have keyframes bake on the animations. This will work right away. You will, if you go to o.g. YouTube channel, he also has this demo exactly, but he just did it like super fast. I'll try to do it a little bit slower. So, and this is also, I'm doing it kind of live. I don't have any preparation, so hopefully everything works as planned. So what's happening, we're gonna use particle, right? So this is gonna be our particle object. We call it vertex because it's gonna, I'm going to edit mode, and then I'm gonna merge this into a single vertices, and then this guy will emit particle from its vertices. How many particles? We're just gonna emit one particle per frame, and the lifetime will be like forever. 250, just 250 here, 250 particle in total. It will finish at 250, and the lifetime of each particle probably 250 as well. Do we need to change anything? Probably. We still need to have the physics set to Newtonian. You can try voids or fluids or keyed, but we will see. Let's see. Turn off the gravity. So for each frame now, this single vertices object will emit a single particles that we can trace, and we're gonna now kind of parent this single objects into this guy. Yeah, kind of parenting. So let's see how we're gonna do that. Object transform output. This guy, object transform output. That's, we are animating the cube. Now we just forget about that. We're gonna bring in object transform input. Here we don't actually need to worry about the offset and absolute thing. We just leave it like that. So we have this master cube, and we're gonna pipe in into the particle objects. Just gonna grab the vert, and so it's already kind of working. Single objects, just, and then it's leaving like a trail behind. And I believe we can just use the particles. Let's see if this actually works. Okay, we're gonna need a particle from object, particles from object. And then here you have to be careful. With particles there are particle list info and particle list info and particle info. So what we want, because an object can have multiple particles, and then don't use this guy. We actually want this one. Let's kill that, and then let's have a look at the output of this location. So it's now you can see it actually says from the very beginning, it says 250 particles, 250 vector inside this list. That's because we need to kind of filter the particles. So filter particles, we need to filter the particles. So we just want the particle that's alive. Now the particle is growing as the animation goes, so this is more correct. And definitely we can now just use the spline spline from points. It's not going to be cyclic. Spline output, spline object output, and then plug in this guy, and then turn on, and then create new target. There you go. So it works right away. So it seems to be, it is actually much simpler than before, where we have like a subframe and offset and absolute frames and that kind of thing. But each of the technique has pros and cons. Like with a particle, we probably cannot have the trace at the front. Yes, but you can probably hack it somewhat. And with a particle, if you see closely, it's leaving the trail. The particle is leaving a trail, but we also need we want the trail to start from the first point. Yes. So in order to do that, we need to add that first location into our setup. So it doesn't include the first particle, so we can append point spline. Which point? This point. This point. Apply. Where's the spline? Let's put it here. Okay, append point. Create spline list. Point Bezier lines. Bezier spline. Create list element. Spline goes spline. So that will do the job. There you go. Then we now have a particle system that's tracing the center point of our animated objects, and we don't need to bake the object. This works right away. I believe you can control, let's say if we have like less points, or maybe the lifetime of particle is like 10. Look, now we have like a shorter tail. That kind of work as well, depending on what you want to do. And with this spline, of course, you can bevel it. It's 0.02, so that will work. Since this is a simulation, you cannot just scrub. With simulation, you need to go to each frame and you actually need to bake the particles, not baking the animations. So that's alright. We can live with that. Let's save this as this guy. And one last thing, we will try to apply this into each and every vertices. This is slightly a little bit trickier, but let's give it a go. So we're gonna, whenever we want to create like an array of things, we need to use object instancer. So let's do that. Object instancer, and here hopefully this works. It's quite long. Let's have a look. So object transform input is our master object, and we need to create object instancer. How many instances? It's gonna be depending on the number of vertices of this guy. So our instances is gonna be our particle object. That's first thing. The number of instances will be the object's vertices. Mesh data, check mesh data, let's grab that, plug it in. So that's been taken care of. We need to now loop every single particle instances, and then we're gonna use object transform output. So this guy will follow the vertex locations of each from the mesh. So vector list, vector location goes in, so the vector goes there and the objects goes there. Let's check it out real quick. So our am I doing it correctly? Okay, so apparently we need to have deep copy. We don't need to copy full object. Okay, we actually need to copy full objects. Yeah, let's do the job. And let's hide the relationship lines. Select the select the object instancer and then tap on U, hide relationship lines. Now to differentiate this guy, so we're gonna make the bevel 0.02. Okay, so we have our objects animating and it's leaving particle trails behind it, just like what we want. Alright, and the next thing we need to do is just to do exactly like above. File, save as, spline elements, I believe we just need to copy 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So particle from object. This is our particles object verts. Object verts. And object verts goes into that guy. Particles from object. Blah blah blah. Get it. Particles. And the output should be multiple splines. Check it out real quick. Debug loop. And check it out here. Spline object Bezier. I'm actually expecting to have like a multiple spline objects. Let's test it anyway. We need spline list output. And then this spline list, we're gonna do spline from points. Gonna do that. Curve object output. Spline list goes there. And looks like I need to iterate over this guy as well. So a little bit more complex, but let's try. Spline. And then another instancer object. Curve 3D. Spline list. New iterator object. Point spline object. Plug that in. There's probably some error there. Almost correct. Create. Except for this part. That should be actually the point position of our mesh, and the number of instances should be that guy. And then we need to have the vertex locations. So let's called object splines, and then new iterator is the vector list, and that's gonna be the position. A little bit more complex. Now that I'm doing this again and recording it, it feels kind of a little bit more complex than I thought. But you know, once you have this setup, it will just work, and you can reuse this. Remember, every node setup, every node tree setup you have, you can always reuse. So you save it as a blend file, and then all you need to do is you install the add-on, and then you use file, append, and then you go to any blend file with a node tree. Let's say, for example, this guy, and you just go into the node tree folder and grab the node tree. So it's good. It's a good idea to name this. Like, let's say this is like a particle tracer. Actually, yeah, particle tracer. What we are doing here is not tracing the particle. We kind of did, but we are using particle to trace the position of a mesh. But some other time you might wanna trace the particle position itself. It might be, I never tried it, but we could try that at some other point. Here we have particle tracing happening, which is good, and we can hide these. We could probably hide the particles if we select. So if we select the particles, that's our emitter. Select the particles and hide it. Instead of hello, we use a none. Hello can display like a trail. No, just hide it. So now we have our objects trace happening. Very, very cool. This is I believe you can have something that's more like a ribbon, so I like that. Instead of bevel, we just use the extrude 0.02. Yeah, so that's working as we want it. So I'll prove it by, so we are saving this blend files, right? And we have this setup. You don't copy paste thing, you actually append it. If you want this to work on another file, let's say you start from scratch, and then we're gonna have like let's say torus or cone. Let's say we use torus, and then with this torus, we wanted to have maybe have just turn it into this guy maybe. So we have a little bit of funny procedurality happening here, kind of like a ring, hexagonal ring like that. Okay, done. It's not super procedural now that it's gone, but I believe you can recreate that using animation nodes or sphere choke. Now let's animate this guy real quick. So we have this blank. We don't have anything here. We're gonna animate it somewhat. We can now just append. Let's go to desktop. Where is our stuff? Here. Let's just grab the node 3 particle tracer, see its name properly. Append it. Okay, now it's appended. Of course, since this is the particle tracer, we need to have the particles, and first of all, we just, for the animations, we already have the wiggle thing. So just apply, cool, so that it's animating. And then we need the particle, and then let's do that real quick. Just this kind of part is called, so with the node 3 you have from another file, it might have like dependency. So it's a good idea to provide like a nodes, like some other extra steps needed. Gravity off, and this is our particle object. So obviously that's gonna be this guy, and this is gonna be our particle object. Let's name it properly. Our vert. What's next? Do we need this target object? Okay, that's we need to create, and then object instancer. Object mesh data is our master object, and it's instancing the vert. Let's now, I think we have everything. Now if we just go to frame number 1 and then let's have a look, it's probably tracing. Did I have everything working properly? Let's remove the line. Height relationship lines. Alright, so what is that? Okay, seems to be working correctly. We can hide everything and then okay, hide the particle as well. Where's the particle, dude? Liner. Vertex Height. Actually, got the particles. Probably can hide it here, but I'll just do it down there. Display emitter, no. Yes. So there you go. So we got everything working, and this is in another file. I'm just gonna save this as well, just in case. And then I will make this full screen. It works faster when it's like full screen. So like this. This is a cool thing about Blender. You can totally customize the layout. Okay. you don't want to see the relationship lines. We probably want to have the timeline. We can put it up there. Video animation, timeline, video sequence, timeline. There you go. Make the timeline, make it bigger. And we can then display only render, display. So playback the animations. You see, it's a lot faster, almost like real time. That's what you want. It's probably a good idea to bake the particle and turn it into cache. Sometimes you need to do that. So there you go, kind of like a sea creatures, or like a kite, kind of have like a ribbon. Obviously it's the I think the particle is emitting too many particles, but you can always tweak that because it's a procedural effect. Yeah, so hopefully you find these video tutorials useful. Please subscribe if you like the video, and I'll do more video in the near future. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Let's just stop the recording.